Shadows of the Past, Month of Cold Eve, Portal Year 11. Welcome back to AC Lore, where we dive ever deeper into the evolving saga of Asheron's Call. Last time, we explored the transformative events of the Dark Thaw. Make sure to catch up on that episode or start from the beginning with Heeding the Call. Today, we unravel the mysteries introduced in the February 2000 update, Shadows of the Past. Darkness loomed over the land as new threats emerged from the shadows. Adventurers in Dereth noticed an eerie presence, one that harkened back to forgotten histories and ancient conflicts. The aftermath of recent events brought forth strange occurrences and malevolent forces that were unsettling the newfound peace. Among these were the elusive shadows and ominous crystal fragments, their origins shrouded in mystery. This is a huge update, and there's a lot of ground to cover here. As always, the video is broken down into chapters for your viewing and browsing pleasure. Let's begin with the monthly teaser that set the tone for this ominous update. Asheron Call read late into the day, poring over ancient texts for some reference to the gigantic bridge-like structure appearing and disappearing over the river near Holtberg. At dusk, soon after she'd lit her candle, a weariness stole over her that could not be explained by the warm spring air, and she soon bowed her head upon her desk. When she finally awoke much later, the larger moon had just begun to rise, and by its light, she could see the dead candle with barely a dimple around its wick. She began to stretch her arm, then stopped. The desk was bare where her manuscripts had been. Something rasped on the floor behind her, and she leapt from her chair. A bone-white figure, clad in tatters, emerged from the stacks. Its figure bent over and examining a book in one hand. In its other, it held the missing parchment. Heart pounding, she cast about for escape as it slowly raised its head to reveal eye sockets like pits floored with angry hot magma. Instinctively, she averted her eyes. A lich, but who and why? "The fools in furore," said the undead monster, "made a toy of the prism, and now the old magic is loosed. The suspended war resumes. Many hidden things will return, and the heretic will kidnap and toy with your people. Reassemble the weapons and fight him. Rally your feeble people, Asheron Call. Tonight, I let you live." She understood none of this. "Who is the heretic?" she asked, but received no answer, and realizing too late that she should not look up, she stood transfixed by those burning eyes. The horror of that stare lingered with its afterimage glow as the lich grinned, faded, and was gone. Finally, we have confirmation that the adventurers who destroyed the Great Work inadvertently released a magical and binding force that had kept unknown ancient conflicts at bay. This revelation sheds light on the new arrivals players encountered throughout the lands, particularly the various types of shadows and fragments. Adding to the mystery, a lich has surfaced, dropping vague hints about potential dangers, including a threat he refers to as the heretic, the reassembly of some ancient weapons for resistance, and more, before disappearing again. What could it mean? Regardless, a change of seasons has intensified. As spring begins anew, baby bunnies hop about, and rains spur new plant life across the land. Archaeologists and excavators have been hard at work unearthing new locations, providing large gathering spaces shielded from the threat of portal storms. Yet, beyond the natural workings and those of Dereth's inhabitants, more changes approach in mysterious fashion. The aftermath of the destruction of the Great Work at the lost city of Furore unleashed formidable new enemies upon the land. For an entire month, these creatures and the floating fragments have continued to attack travelers. Seeking wisdom from ancient tomes, scholars have uncovered mentions of legendary weapons that were once used to vanquish the shadows. Can these relics be reclaimed before the battlegrounds are set? Already, a colossal bridge of volcanic glass spans the River Prosper. New enigmatic catacombs have emerged, and exhausted adventurers recount grueling ordeals at the hands of an unseen, godlike force. As we delve deeper into the unfolding events of this month, it's essential to understand the historical context simultaneously. The following excerpt from General Histories of Dereth Volume 3 provides invaluable insights into the intricate goings-on in the world at this time. Let's immerse ourselves in these chronicles to better grasp the significance of the challenges and discoveries that await us. Providence smiled upon the refugee nations of Ispar in the month of Cold Eve. Whispers began to cross the land of ancient storage vaults hidden across the length and breadth of Dereth. Bold parties sought these lost facilities out and discovered weapons used in the last war with the Shadows, some 2,000 years before humans first arrived in this land. These were designed ages ago by alchemist and warrior Lord Atlan and his wife, the enchanter Lady Mala. While the contributions of both were apparently vital to winning the last war, the documentation recovered suggested both died in the conflict, hardly a reassuring statistic. The Atlan artifacts were a set of melee weapons, swords, daggers, maces, and so on, which could be alchemically refined from raw pyreal motes. The weapons could be further improved using a set of elemental stones, which could be exchanged at will using a special stone tool. This allowed, for example, a frosting axe to be turned into a lightning axe. While motes of the magical alloy pyreal could be recovered from any type of golem, the stones in the tool were securely stored in several remote and dangerous dungeons. One of these was defended by legions of powerful undead, another with fire elementals and magma golems, a third by never-before-seen lightning elementals, and another had become the home of a band of Tumaroks. Olthoi had invested the final vault, named Incunabula, transforming it into the most deadly hive known to exist in Dereth. Perhaps in response to the discovery of these weapons, the shadows that had made overland travel a terrifying prospect melted away into the night. Very few remained under open skies, although this made some more nervous than relieved. Taverns abounded with fresh rumors of evil's hand in the world. As teased in the last episode, here we are given the first of some discoveries that offer an opportunity to alter the course of the fight now at Dereth's doorstep. These come in the form of weapons which were crafted by collecting 16 pyreal motes and then finding an alchemist to create a, hopefully, quality pyreal ingot. These pyreal motes were now dropped by any and all types of golems found throughout the land and became aggressively hunted, while the motes gained value as a trade currency of sorts. The alchemist is an important component. While you can make one of these weapons without alchemy skill, it will be inherently inferior to a successfully combined ingot by a skilled alchemist. This further encouraged players to create their own alchemist, or boosted existing players who had chosen alchemy as a character skill, further diversifying the type of characters we may potentially encounter, as well as fostering interaction between those players. Once you have acquired your ingot, quality or otherwise, they could be then taken to a geographic area that's identifiable even from the small in-game map. The Crater. Inside the crater, players could locate Crater Village, where players would meet both the Archmage Silencia and her Magma Golem. Silencia sells the glyphs, which would be chosen as it relates to their weapon skill. At this point, the player would then combine the glyph with the ingot, resulting in an infused ingot. When given to Silencia's Magma Golem, it then returns your chosen Atlan weapon. These weapons were so called due to being initially forged and recorded in written history by an ancient lord by the name of Atlan, whom was also a capable alchemist in the service of the ancient Yelayan Empire. During a time of great stress leading up to the Empyrean Shadow War, Lord Atlan crafted weapons of pure pyreal in order to combat the threat, and documents confirming as much were excavated in the newly exposed vaults across Dereth, along with other items used for alteration of the Atlans. These stones, used to alter the Atlan weapons, were also a creation of that time from the wife of Lord Atlan, Lady Mala. She is also the one responsible for creating the type of magma golem found in Crater Village that seems to be under Silencia's direction. Notably, this time period of the Empyrean Shadow War and Lord Atlan is around the time that the great mage, Asheron, was born. Lady Mala would personally come to know Asheron, and over 5 centuries after Lord Atlan's death, she saw great promise in the young mage and entrusted her responsibilities to him. She would be slain by Baal-Zaron, the Hope Slayer, not long after. It would be left to Asheron to lead the charge on concluding the war which had raged for over 5 centuries by this point. As stated, these Atlan weapons could be further augmented with the setting of Atlan stones. There were 4 such elemental stones at this time which could be interchanged in the weapon using a special tool. Further, there were both major and minor versions of each, offering options for lower level characters as well as higher level characters. Each stone represents a different elemental damage and alters the visual style of the weapon once it is set into it. Stinging, smoldering, sparking, and shivering. though there was another, special stone, available only to powerful monarchs that could survive a mysterious challenge. Many powerful monarchs were whisked away to a remote island, said to lie to the southwest of Dereth. Here they were challenged by a dark presence to run a gauntlet filled with bizarre monsters. While most lost their sense of direction or were slain by the gauntlet's fierce inhabitants, two of the most dangerous fiends in Dereth survived the trial, Blackthorn and Vidorian of Thistledown. They were rewarded with corrupted shadow stones, which could be fitted into the Atlan weapons. These stones gave a weapon tremendous power, though their use seemed to drain the will and sense of self in the wielder. It remained to be seen what the two so-called Dark Masters would be called upon to do. Fafhrd of Thistledown and Killian of Morningthaw made a heroic decision to defy the gathering evil and refuse to take the Dark Presence's test. Their selfless denial of easy power would be remembered in the days ahead. At some point during this update, Great Monarchs, so considered at that time, were contacted by a Dark Presence and invited to face a challenge called the Gauntlet, which would take place in a secluded and typically inaccessible location, Singularity Call Island. Interestingly, not all Great Monarchs accepted the mysterious summons. Out of all monarchs invited, only 2 accepted and completed the trials, both from the Thistledown server. Their names were Vidorian and Blackthorn. This gauntlet included a sort of time-limited obstacle course that included many difficult enemies with an elevated area at the end which players must also be able to jump upon. These are the only 2 that successfully completed the gauntlet and earned the Shadow Stone, which could be set into their Atlan weapons. Further, these 2 monarchs earned the title of Dark Master. The 2 monarchs known to have declined the challenge were known as Fafhrd of Thistledown and Killian of Morningthaw, an interesting turn of events that could have potential ramifications down the line. Simultaneously, archaeological discoveries were taking place across Dereth, yielding the town meeting halls and other mysteries. On the opposite edge of the Amun Desert, Diza ibn Nadkab began excavating a massive crypt complex built beneath an ancient fortress near Zakal. He apparently ventured where he shouldn't have, and the ancient dead of the impious temple reawakened, chasing him out of the complex. In exchange for funds to continue his research, he let the bold enter the temple. A shattered staff, apparently unusable, was discovered in its depths. Fortunately, some adventurers managed to find someone wise enough to repair it. Not all of the news was worrisome. The land continued to recover from the damage wrought by the great work of the Geladites. Flowers blossomed all over Ostith, filling the air with drifting clouds of pollen. Rabbits, delighted by the return of warm weather, quickly did as rabbits are wont to do. A veritable plague of baby bunnies flooded the landscape, nibbling crops and tripping inattentive travelers. Most were harmless irritants, but tales of more dangerous baby bunnies trickled out of the Direlands. Meantime, the excavations of over 20 meeting halls dating from the Empyrean era of lore were completed near the major towns of Dereth. These underground amphitheaters are thought to have been built for nobles and scholars to hold assemblies, or for local troop garrisons to hold briefings. They resumed their duties quickly enough, as allegiances across Dereth began to hold their meetings in these structures. In other local news, Gutama the Wise, Archmage of Arwick, moved down the road. Complaints from neighbors about crowds of mages practicing their craft all hours of the night convinced the town's nobility to build a new shop for him outside of town. Lastly, as if in omen, the beginnings of the month saw a titanic bridge carved from volcanic obsidian appear over the River Prosper between Holtberg, Cragstone, and Arwick. Formerly cloaked by the lost magical arts of the Empyrean, the obsidian span drew crowds of gawkers. Not a few unfortunate souls jumped off of it, doubtless driven to insanity by the inescapable gift of Lifestone resurrection. Sages can only speculate what other structures might lie in plain sight without our knowing. As we mentioned previously, excavations were occurring across Dereth for a variety of reasons. Firstly, we have talk of the discovery of some new temple, the Impious Temple, which offered players an opportunity to unravel further lore as well as a new item, the Impious Staff. Further, this was the month that the town meeting halls were introduced to the game. In order to understand the purpose and function of meeting halls, we have to talk about portal storms for a moment. A portal storm is a phenomenon that occurs when a large amount of players gather in a particular location, and in order for the server to reduce stress on a local area, players will be randomly teleported elsewhere by the portal storm. This could be a problem when larger allegiances or other such groups gather for functions or to meet for other purposes. Therefore, These allegedly ancient Empyrean structures were excavated, and these were meant to serve allegiances or other large congregations of players that would previously be subject to portal storms. Portal storm functionality is disabled while within the meeting halls. Finally, we have talk of a large volcanic bridge dubbed the Obsidian Span, which has suddenly appeared over the River Prosper, which is the alluvian region of Dereth. Apparently, this bridge had always been present, but had been concealed by ancient Empyrean magic. The Obsidian Span's function would remain, for the time being, a complete mystery to the player base of Asheron's Call. Obviously, there were large changes taking place. New enemies and challenges continue to appear, while old enemies find new purpose on the road to the weapons that could mean everything for those of Dereth. This month, at the Gauntlet, marked the first appearance of the creature known as the Lag Beast, as well as new elemental creatures. Many new texts were added to the game, as well as NPCs or new dialogue for existing NPCs in some cases. Those of Dereth caught out in a thunderstorm, or if looking out the window at the right time during a lightning storm, may at times behold a truly frightening visage, the silhouette of Baal-Zoran, looming large and threatening in the skies. Many conversations were had amongst the inhabitants of Dereth as to what exactly this dire manifestation could mean, but answers were not to be had as of yet. These larger changes didn't come alone though. There were mechanical changes. For example, melee skills were modified to receive a damage bonus from the strength stat. Additionally, melee speed was tweaked to be a bit faster overall. Bugs were isolated and fixed, content was sprinkled for various levels of characters, and other quality of life features were added to the game during Shadows of the Past, making it one of the larger updates thus far. As always, with the many new additions to Dereth, players could acquire rumors or listen to what other players were speaking about in order to make new discoveries. The developers of Asheron's Call made it a frequent habit to announce the existence of new content, just not where and how a player may find said content, leaving exploration and discovery up to the players. Players would be able to buy rumors, listen to what's said in town by both players and NPCs, or find clues in other ways to discover that new content. Shadows of the Past was one of the biggest updates yet, providing substantial progression in almost all areas of focus: plot, mechanical, UI, items, enemies, NPCs, locations, and more. Even still, this is just the beginning for Asheron's Call, as we have only covered 3 months as of now. Will the discovery and redeployment of the Atlan weapons prove a viable response to the looming shadow threat? What of the fragments? Their roles will become clear with time, but for now the inhabitants of Dereth work diligently together, acquiring motes of Pyreal in effort to craft the Atlan weaponry, and continue to build ever bigger allegiance networks. One might also consider, if the Atlan is to be the offensive tool, could there also be a viable defensive tool that could be deployed? Only the future will reveal if these plans yield fruit, but fret not, more will be revealed in the next month's update, Darkness Ascendant. Thank you for joining me on this continuing journey into the lore of Asheron's Call's third major update, Shadows of the Past. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of Dereth, please take a moment to like this video and leave a comment with your thoughts or questions about this bit of AC lore. As always, subscribing to the channel helps me understand more directly what kind of content resonates with you as a viewer, so that and sharing this video are the most powerful ways to tell me that you love it. Your feedback will help shape future videos, and we shall certainly be exploring more of these fascinating stories together in the next video, in which we will detail the Darkness Ascendant update for March of 2000. Until next time, adventurers, stay curious, and perhaps one day we shall meet in the world of Dereth.